What's up, Zox fam? Now, with CBT2 on the horizon for Wuthering Waves, I wanted to kind of get into our expectations. And I really wanted to talk about this because this is a huge topic that's circulating. And depending on where you stand, you're on one of two sides. You either have extremely high expectations or you're setting your expectations very low just because of maybe PTSD or previous experiences with other games. Now, the thing is that I want to kind of get into and breaking down why us players in Wuthering Waves are so hyped. And even when we're referring to different things, why exactly are we referring to those things? And of course, I'm going to do my due diligence to try to show this as best as I can so you guys can kind of grasp it. Now, there are components to this entire topic that I do agree with. So we're going to go over those things as well. But I first want to actually jump into Gen 1 versus Gen 2. And that's one of the big topics that I feel like a lot of people don't really grasp when we're looking at some of these videos or we're looking at some of these things from Punishing Gray Raven, for example. What exactly are we hyped about, right? Now, for example, we're going to go into Punishing Gray Raven here. And the thing is that I want to show you guys a Gen 1 character. So this is like one of the launch characters that we got in PGR. And this is Lucia's first construct. And the crazy thing that's like kind of with this character is like you have basic abilities, right? So if you were to do your slash here, it's basic slashes, you know, nothing too crazy. We're gonna do some orb pings, right? So we're gonna go for an orb ping, power up right there, hit the matrix. Nothing too crazy. You just got some pretty basic slashes. And at that time when the game came out, this was cool, okay? Like this was top tier. We're like, yo, this is insane. Like we're eating, you know? And then let's do a 3 orb ping here, right? And then we awaken her skill. Her slashes go a little bit crazier. And that's basically that, right? So that's basically the character in a nutshell, right? So hold on, let me try to get her ult real quick, right? Do her ult, and then that's that, right? So that's basically what we were presented with initially in Punishing Gray Raven, right? Now, moving forward, I want to show you guys what Generation 2 units look like, right? So I'm going to show you Bianca Stigmata, right? So Bianca Stigmata is a Generation 2 unit, and look at just how much more expansive her kit gets, right? The abilities got her moving all over the place. She's slashing. You know, we can hit the matrix with a snap. We don't even have to dodge. You know, there's so much expansiveness that goes into this. The character has 2 forms of alts that changes out her layout of how her abilities work. She can go in the air, do air slashes, and then to top it all off, she can do her ultimate and just straight up obliterate this enemy, right? Now, the thing is that obviously this is a huge difference from Generation 1 to Generation 2. And I think that with that understanding, we have now come to and have laid it out on the table as to why, and what I would consider is a portion of why Wuthering Wave players, previously maybe Punishing Gray Raven players or have experienced Punishing Gray Raven, are extremely hyped, because what we're going to be getting in Wuthering Waves, at least in the very beginning, is going to be Generation 1. So if we're already starting out with what seems to already be pretty immersive combats and mechanics, that means the game is going to evolve. When Punishing Gray Raven first started, there was no parrying, right? Like that was something that came a little bit later in the lifespan of the game. So there is one aspect to the setting our expectations too high that I would actually agree with, and it's the understanding that we're not going to be getting all of the super crazy stuff in the very beginning, because you have to kind of think about it in that perspective. Is what would there be for them to build upon if they were to give us everything right in the beginning? And so that means that what I'm at least hoping and what I've seen them produce and be able to accomplish is being able to have the game over time become even more beautiful and even more mechanically sound and even more compact with information for us to be able to learn in terms of different mechanics, blocking or parrying or dodging with, you know, not dodging, but you know, there's so many different avenues that they can go down in terms of what they can do to make this game better. Now, the thing is though, and I will say this to the individuals that feel like we have our expectations too high and we're just so overhyped, my thing is that you deserve and you should be able to keep that kind of energy, right? I feel like as a person that sees a company doing something good, until they give me a reason to feel otherwise, or, you know, like I kind of just believe in that, right? It's kind of like you are supposed to treat people a certain way until they give you a reason not to, right? So you trust people until they give you a reason not to. That's at least what healthy people do, right? So I think that that's one of the big things that I'm taking into this Wuthering Waves community, is that we are going in extremely hyped. We have a company that seems to honestly be fully backing everything that they said that they were going to be willing to do. They said, hey, we want player feedback. They received that player feedback, no matter how harsh it was. And they took that player feedback, instead of saying, woe is us and we don't care, our game is amazing and we're going to release it as is. They literally rewrote 90% of the story. They went and they changed the quality of the cameras, of the characters. They went and revamped and enhanced the environment. And this is something that I just honestly you just don't see. So when you have this kind of level of activity, you should honestly, I would say, support it, right? And I think that that's the kind of energy that I would like to see to continue to be pumped up in the Wuthering Waves community, is that we have a certain level of positivity and honestly a certain level of expectation, because I think that that also is going to create a really, really healthy balance with making other games look and say, hey, this is now the standard, right? Because until somebody actually comes in and infiltrates a space and creates a new standard, everything is going to be the same. So for example, right, let's talk about how before Genshin Impact, there was the whole, we call it pre-cone. So a lot of us gacha gamers call it like the pre-cone era. So it was basically the games that would come out and they were just all chibi. You know, they were all just kind of like, hey, booba, 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 we got booba, you're gonna buy our game. And that kind of became the norm. So you only seen companies releasing booba games. And if it, you know, the bigger the better the booba, the more money we're gonna make. And that was kind of the mentality that they had as they were pushing out those games. And it took certain games to come out, which I will give to, like games like Genshin Impact, to come out and to say, hey, no, this is the new standard. So now you see more games going into 2024, you see a lot more games. It's the standard now to come out with a PC client. It's the standard now to make sure that maybe you're working towards a console release, whether it be Switch or PS5. This is now the norm of even what smaller companies are trying to achieve. And that was not the case, but it was because someone came into the space and did something completely different and changed the standard. So I feel like a lot of that also goes into the community. We're a big part of changing the standard. And I feel like you should support something that's seeming to be pushing towards changing the standard. And so that for me is why my expectations are so high. It's not just me looking at Wuthering Waves, but there's a lot of other games this year that I'm going to be really excited in trying out. And I feel like the more games that we have that are looking at games such as Wuthering Waves, we're going to hope that hopefully they start to structure their business models and even just how they run their communities around what Wuthering Waves has been able to present. That's at least my hopium there, right? Now, I will say though, that it is okay, and you should be, of course, with everything, have some little, have a little caution and just being aware of the fact that, hey, Kuro is going to at some point make a mistake, right? But it's not about what mistake you make, it's how you rectify the situation. How are you going to fix that mistake? Because we're all human. We all make mistakes. Companies all make mistakes. No matter how good intentions they have, they make mistakes. But it's all in how they handle those mistakes and what they do to better the community, right? So I think that that is the big takeaway for me, is that we really honestly don't necessarily just have this unrealistic high expectation. It's just that we've been able to see them cook, and we're excited for them to be able to do the same type of cooking, if not better cooking, in this next game. Now, one of the last things that I want to cover is within our own community, and it's the Wuthering Waves toxicity. I think that this year I had to kind of think about what I really wanted to put my time into, because time, in my perspective, is money, right? But your time is valuable, long story short. So I feel like if a player loves Genshin Impact, or if a player loves Tower of Fantasy, or if a player loves Honkai Star Rail, yes, it is okay to have your own opinion about the game. I can say, maybe I'm not a fan, or I don't like Genshin Impact, for example, which is not the case, right? you can say that. But I think it's a completely different thing once you start dogpiling someone because they play a certain game and you feel like your game's going to be better. So you use that as ammunition to dogpile them. Now, the thing is that obviously there's going to be toxicity on both sides, but you are in control of what you do, right? So my thing is that I implore those of you guys that are coming in from different communities, if you find yourself in a toxic space, don't write the game off because of that. Try to find a more positive space to be in. And if you are one of the individuals that are a part of Wuthering Waves, try to be more understanding. I think that one of the things for me that I had to kind of look at when it comes down to like Genshin Impact players, I honestly more than anything feel bad because to put your time into something and to really have really high prospects and hopes for your game that you really, truly, honestly love. You fall in love with the story or your favorite characters or whatever it is. And to see them not living up to any sort of expectation that really is offering you a better experience, I think that that's what really sucks. And I feel like as a community, we should be honestly, like I said, with open arms. I said this in one of my last videos. We should have open arms to those individuals so that they feel welcomed in Wuthering Waves. And I think the entire idea, guys, is that it's not about Wuthering Waves being the supreme game and the only game that people play, because it's just not the reality of it. No one's going to just single-handedly stop living life and only play Wuthering Waves. At some point, they're going to probably dabble back into another game, or they're going to probably play a game that they've already been playing in conjunction to Wuthering Waves. I think, again, it goes back to the standard that we would like to see have overall across the board being set in the industry so that companies are treating their players better. And with that, I just feel like, again, there is a lot that comes out of that. I feel like for me personally, when you treat your players a certain way, they only want to continue to support you, you know? So I feel like, again, keeping each other and holding each other accountable is, yes, very important. But I also feel like, again, for what my platform stands for what my community stands for, it's only about pushing positivity. Yes, we are going to talk about different issues or topics that could be considered toxic, but it's always going to be with the understanding we're trying to come to a common ground, or we are honestly trying to fix it. Right? I'm not really one of those people that likes to spew back and forth nonsense and it just be this tit for tat. I really am more of a problem solver. This is the issue. What can we do about it? And how can we get there? Right? So that's basically going to be that, guys. Again, keep the hype going, man. I'm going to keep the hype going. I got a crap ton of reaction videos that's still going to be coming on the channel. So y'all don't got to worry about the hype from me. But I'm extremely excited for Wuthering Waves, man. I just think that, like, again, when it comes down to the entire idea of where our expectations are, I feel like a lot of it is honestly just really right. Like, we honestly should have high expectations. I think that, again, we also aren't just making this like baseless expectation off of just anything. We're making this from what we've seen them be able to actually produce and do. So yes, there is going to be that workup. That's absolutely a fact. We're not going to get all these things right in the beginning, but nor is it going to be one of those things where the game stays stagnant for X amount of years, you know? So I think that that's the big thing. And what we're all really excited about is seeing the evolution of this game and knowing what peak stuff they've already created and what and how that peak stuff is going to translate into Wuthering Waves. So let me know what you guys think, man. Again, come check your boy out on twitch.tv/Zoxaskun. I would really appreciate that. But you guys have a blessed day, man, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.